Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win, and we're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Today on the channel, we are taking a look at the Pestilence Master Shroud set armor for the Necromancer class. A armor that used to be pretty good and kind of has dropped off quite a bit because of Torment 16 and everything of the sort. Anyway, without further ado, Pestilence Master Shroud, 2-piece bonus. Each corpse you consume fires a corpse lance of a nearby enemy. 2-piece bonus, each enemy you hit with Bone Spear, Corpse Lance, Corpse Explosion reduces your damage taken by 2%, up to a maximum of 50%, lasts 15 seconds. 6-piece bonus, each corpse you consume grants you an empowered Bone Spear, which changes the increased damage of your next Bone Spear by 33,000%. In addition, Corpse Lance and Corpse Explosion damage is increased by 33,000%. For the purpose of this build, we're only using Corpse Lances. We're not using anything else with it. Some of those skills aren't really too useful for the armor, so we're mostly using a full set of Pestilence Master Shroud, as you can see here. However, to help augment its power, we are using Captain Crimson. 2-piece bonus, 6,000 life per second, reduces cooldown of all skills by 20%, reduces resource cost by 20%. Damage dealt is increased by your percentage of cooldown. Damage reduced is based on the amount of cost reduction you have. As you can see, we're also using Crispin Sentis, the Justice set here, so that we can have our command skeletons as an attack target, and that will give us a kind of supplemental amount of damage as well. We're also using a Convention of Elements ring as well here. So, as you can see, we're also going to use the Johnston. This is very, very, very important for this build, because whenever we activate Land of the Dead, granted 50 stacks of Maccabee Knowledge. Maccabee Knowledge increases the damage of the Corpse Lances. So, the Bracer is kind of just a placeholder there for the skills. Command Skeletons, Dark Mending. Land of the Dead, Frozen Lands is the way you want to go. Devour, Satiated is definitely what we need. Blood Rush Molting we're going to use here. Simulacrum Reservoir, it's not very helpful, but it comes in handy a little bit. Corpse Lance, Brittle Touch. Standalone, Overwhelming Essence, Blood is Power, and Final Service will be your passives. Indica Ice Cube, Relina Shadowhook, Corpse Whisperer's Pauldrons, and Ring of Royal Grandeur. This is what my Paragon looks like. As for the follower recommendation, put a Broken Crown there, put a Flavor of Time, Nemesis Bracers. Everything else is just kind of throwaway because it helps, but it doesn't really give that many benefits. For the purpose of the showcase, we're going to do a greater of 60, greater of 65, and a greater of 70. Keep in mind that Pestilence Master Shroud does not do very well on Torment 16 difficulty because it has kind of issues just based on monster placement and everything. You have to get very lucky for it to work the way it's supposed to. I'm going to try to guide you here as best as possible. Okay, so when you get into the gate, the first thing you want to do is use your command skeletons and then activate your Frozen Lands. Then from there, you're going to use your Devour to just fire off non-stat Corpse Lances. As you see, you want to keep running towards enemies as fast as possible. Eventually, you're going to run out of your Frozen Land, and from there, what you're going to want to do is use your regular Corpse Lances to destroy enemies if there's any bodies around. If you see that there's not a body around, how can you create one? You simply use your teleport ability, and it will do that for you. Now, keep in mind, because of this particular set armor, you will burn through your essence very quickly, which puts you in the not best position in certain situations. So it's always in your benefit to try to do your damage rotation so that you're not waiting too often for your Frozen Land to come back, because without your Frozen Land, as you can see here, it takes a while. And this is, keep in mind, with me having cooldown reduction on a lot of pieces of my gear, as well as having gems, and it still, as you can see, takes a significant while. So I'm not going to fire off any Corpse Lances here. I'm not going to activate the Land of the Dead because I'm scouting around to see a good target. So this in particular is why this particular set armor doesn't do too well. It's very dependent on the map. It's also very dependent on the amount of enemies that you have coming across at you. I'm going to use my Frozen Land here again. So you can see I'm going to fire off a whole bunch of Corpse Lances because I'm holding in the Reservoir button, which is the Devour one, Satiated. So as you can see, I'm firing off all the Bone Spears again. I have to keep running. Obviously, it's out, so now I have to reset again. So I'm going to stand back over this way. I'm going to use regular Corpse Lances whenever I can possibly, and use my command skeletons to do the damage, just waiting basically until hopefully that I get my cooldown back. As you can see, Land of the Dead takes a very long time for its cooldown to come back, obviously because it's such a good skill that it's very abusable with this particular armor. So again, when you need a body, what you're going to do is you're going to teleport so it creates a corpse, so then you have extra Corpse Lances that you can fire off that way. Whenever you teleport, you're creating a corpse with this particular build. So that's why you do that, to kind of help mitigate some of the issues that you may run into. Alright, let's keep going. Same strategy as before. You're going to use your command skeletons at the moment to try to pick bodies off. Then we'll use our teleport to give us a corpse, and then from there we'll fire off regular corpse lances at the moment. We're waiting a couple seconds for Land of the Dead. We're going to pop it here in a second. We just want to wait for a big amount of enemies to be on the screen. Okay, we pop Land of the Dead. Same strategy as before. We're going to fire off a multitude of corpse lances while trying to continue to run as fast as possible to attack as many targets as possible before our Land of the Dead expires. Which it does. Now that it expired, we can fire off regular corpse lances if we want. Unfortunately, there's not really a lot of targets around. So, and we don't have that many skeletons, or corpses, I should say, to take to our benefit. Okay, let's fire off a couple corpse lances here. And this is pretty much how the build will work for you. Now, in terms of optimization, what should you be doing with this armor? Well, first and foremost, I highly recommend that you put cooldown reduction on all pieces of your gear wherever possible, because you need to try to get Land of the Dead back up as fast as possible. So, cooldown reduction 8.0% wherever you can on this particular armor. Definitely make sure to do so. That will help out tremendously in just getting back your Land of the Dead. Then from there, obviously, this armor cannot take a whole bunch of hits because it is vulnerable at time. So I recommend 8.0% damage cost reduction, or resource cost reduction wherever possible, to reduce the number of cooldown reduction. Obviously, there's only 2 skills on this particular armor that you would be using that you want to augment. That being your command skeletons, and that being your corpse lances. Honestly, I think it's more important to put 15% into corpse lances than it is really the command skeletons, just because command skeletons naturally just take a long time to kill enemies, particularly on the higher group, as opposed to the corpse lances where you're just augmenting and increasing the amount of power. So I would recommend doing something of that nature and powering off the corpse lance wherever possible. Obviously, on top of that, since necromancers need a lot of intelligence, I would recommend that you get the max rolls of intelligence here. So the Rift Guardian is here. As you saw, I popped a Frozen Land prematurely. Going to fire off all the corpse lances from Devour, and we pretty much profit, and that's pretty much how the armor activates. Now, in terms of further optimization, what would you want to do? For the legendary gems in particular, I would recommend, obviously, if you can, go Arc of Swiftness. That way you can bring back your Land of the Dead back as fast as possible. I would recommend, because we are using Frozen Lands, that you use Bane of the Trap, because you could get an increased amount of damage that way. And then I would recommend the last gem. In my personal opinion, it should be Bane of the Stricken, because since you're firing off a multitude of corpse lances at the same time, it works better with those particular skills. For Bane of the Stricken, so I would recommend it. Some people prefer Zaystone of Vengeance to attack from far. I say Bane of the Stricken, Bane of the Trap, and Arc of Swiftness are the way to go. That was Greater Rift 60, Torment 13 difficulty. Alright, this is going to be a Greater Rift 65. Keep in mind, as you go higher up in the Greater Rift, once you hit about Greater Rift 70 is when things with this armor start to slow down tremendously. Same strategy as before. Fire off our Frozen Land, then use our Consume to consume all the enemies around us, which will fire off a whole bunch of corpse lances around. Obviously, we haven't gotten the best dungeon layouts for this particular armor, so that's why we're kind of struggling a little bit here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a command skeleton. Every once in a while, I'm going to teleport. When I teleport, I create corpse lances, or targets for my corpse lances to be fired off, so that's why we do that. And we're just going to kind of keep following that strategy of teleporting around, creating corpses to then fire off regular corpse lances. We're not going to go too crazy with them yet, because we're basically just waiting for our Land of the Dead to go out and active. In terms of further optimization with this armor, I would recommend on your helm 6.0% crit hit chance. On your gloves, I would recommend these 3 stats: crit hit damage 50%, crit hit chance 6.0%, at least attack speed of 8.0%, but 7.0% works just as well, so don't stress if you're a point below. You're just trying to get the most optimal rolls possible. Those 3 stats on your gloves will guarantee that you'll be able to activate, or not activate, but you should be able to do another 10 Greater Rift difficulties or higher, depending on the level of the player. Now, Pestilence, Master Shroud is a particular build where I don't particularly see it very high tier. I think right now it's somewhere between B and C tier. There are better Necromancer armors that require less optimization for you to do well, and you could do better with them, add high leaderboard placement and everything of the sort. That being Masquerade of the Burning Carnival, which I just covered last week. It's available in the playlist. Legacy of Dreams Poison Scythe, and I would even dare say Grace of Inaris works a little bit better, because you're relying so heavily on one gimmick, and you're relying very heavily in this particular set armor on perfect dungeon layouts, and a lot of things kind of got to go exactly your way for you to be able to perform well. So you're kind of at the mercy of RNG. Sometimes it works well. Case in point here, there were a lot of targets, so we got a decent amount of value out of our corpse lances that way and our land of dead plague. But again, having very long corridors like this, where it's not very wide open areas where you can't really come to the enemies as fast as possible. We just got killed by the stalker. I haven't seen one of those in a while, actually, by game, so that's pretty surprising. Let's fire off some stone spheres, move back a bit, because, like I said, Necromancer is a very, very, very squishy class. So you want to always do as much as possible to ensure that you put yourself in good position, stay away from AoE effects. But I would recommend Necromancer's Masquerade Burn Carnival, Legacy Dreams, Poison Scythe. I'll cover that next week, and I got to cover it this week. And I would also then say, at a lesser extent, Grace of Anarius, then Pestilence. And then last but least, you'd probably, I'd say never use it, but people still do, Tragul's Avatar, which is even worse version of a Corpse Lance in this, where you just use your blood to fire off things, and it's, you're going to spend more time dying than you're actually going to spend time winning. So there's definitely that to look forward to. In terms of Diablo 3 news, as most of you are aware, Diablo Season 25 is nearing its end. I don't think I'm going to get to every armor I wanted to cover this particular season, but I did cover all the important ones that got their buffs, nerfs, and were the starter set. Season 26 has some interesting changes already that are going to be implemented, that being the seasonal new endgame content, which looks very good and promising for Paragon farming. Subsequently, on top of that, we also have rework to the Barbarian set armor Rakers. So Rakor is now going to be a Ancient Spear / Furious Charge build, so it's got in its own identity. I'm very interested to see how that armor is going to evolve and what type of playstyle comes about from it. It looks very promising, and it's definitely what Rakor needed as a set armor, because right now it was just a weaker and worse version of the Hammer of the Ancients Immortal Kings build. So right now that it gets its own flowers and own love, and hopefully this will be a change that will bring it at least relevant. Doesn't have to be an S tier armor, just has to be something that could be solid B tier, and I'm happy with it. Just something usable, but not like overly broken. Something kind of like what happened with Firebird, even though some people still argue Firebird is S tier. So that's one of the major changes. It looks like there's going to be some kind of buffs a little bit to Ancient Spirit, at least in terms of what weapons and prefixes do with that. In terms of nerfs, we're not seeing anything major significant nerfs for a change. So it was a nice change of pace to see that it wasn't super big nerfs, even though I kind of feel like they should still do something with Whirlwind Barbarian, because they've touched everything else and they haven't touched that. There's still a couple of monk armors that obviously Raiment of 1,000 Storms needs a lot of work to make it viable. On top of that, as you see here, one of the things I did was I saved my Frozen Land intentionally so I would just have it for the Rift Guardian. Whenever possible, you don't want to fight the Rift Guardian, especially on higher grade rifts, without having a Frozen Land, because you won't be able to one-shot them most of the time. So that's why sometimes you got to be a little reserved with it. You got to check to see if it's time to use it. If there's not a lot of enemies around you probably shouldn't be using excuse me, Land of the Dead. You usually want to just save that for when there's a lot of enemies on screen, so keep that in mind. Alright, so let's check here. That's probably about 4-minute clear time, I'd say, somewhere 5. Alright, so that was Greater of 65, 5-minute and 23-second clear time. As you go higher up, the clear times get rough and more rough. So I'm going to do a Greater of 70 to show you how it fares. This is when you're going to start noticing, around Tournament 15 plus difficulty, that the armor is definitely going to start struggling. You need a very good dungeon layout so you can get off a lot of Frozen Land and get off a lot of spears and keep running. I went the wrong way there. Might have worked in our benefit, though, because if I went a little too aggro there, it might have been not very good for us. So you're going to notice, as you go higher up in the Greater Rifts, enemies have more HP. Your Corpse Lances are not doing as much damage. You're going to have to rely on a lot more rotating on your window to try to micromanage your essence, as well as trying to create some corpses that you can use. Case in point here, I'm looking to make a corpse so I can fire off a regular Corpse Lance, because obviously my essence is burning pretty low at the moment. Let's fire them off. Almost got them. Gotta be careful I don't take unnecessary death. Picked up 3 orbs there. Let's keep it moving. Waiting for Land of the Dead go back up, so I'm gonna walk far away from my command skeletons. Command skeletons are gonna put in most of the work. I'll fire off corpse lances wherever possible. I'm not gonna hit my Land of the Dead just yet because I'm waiting for a large area enemies. Case in point, maybe around here would be a good one, but we're gonna save it just a bit. Maybe teleport back away. Alright, let's keep going. I think we're getting close to having to use that frozen land, but not just yet. I don't see enough enemies on the screen to basically capitalize on that. So we're firing off still our regular corpse lances. That's basically what I want to do. You want to mitigate it because you want to save, remember, that Land of the Dead for that really big push. I think we're going to be big pushing right now. Alright, I'm firing off my Land of the Dead. Then I go to using my Devour. So it's devouring all the corpses. I'm getting back health. I'm firing off a tremendously large amount of corpse lances that, as you can see, are doing a significant amount of damage. It's just a matter of getting as many enemies killed on screen as possible at a time, and then from there you have to wait back for the cooldown. That's the only big drawback with this particular armor, is the fact that you're waiting so much for that cooldown between intervals of Army of the Dead. I'm gonna ignore those enemies in that pylon there, although it has elites, just so I can keep going. Because remember, I've got to keep an eye on my essence, got to keep an eye on other things as well. Let's attack that door. Let's attack our enemies here. So far, so good. Let's give up a couple of fires. Alright. Let's activate our Land of the Dead as we did here. We're going to fire off a tremendous amount of spears. Keep going. We have to take out as many targets as possible right now to get the most value out of it. Again, like I said, damage rotations with this particular armor are a little bit difficult in the fact that you got to kind of micromanage when you're using certain things, and it's very dependent on the enemies just being very well placed so that you can do a really good run and take care of a lot of things before you have to wait a long time again. Alright, let's try to get back our cooldown a little bit. Trying to create some corpses to fire off some corpse lances. That's why I'm using teleport, in case you guys are wondering again. In case you're jumping around, that's what we're doing. Command skeleton attack target. Alright, let's be careful. I'm going to move back here because this enemy is giving AoE effects. My avatar is refusing to do so, as you can see there. That's kind of funny. But that's really what we should be doing, is playing cautiously, because this enemy's got AoE effect. The AoE effect is the big explosion you see. It just basically means area of effect damage for them. So this is not your starter set, keep in mind, for Season 25 of Diablo III. I would not really pay too much attention to any of the starter sets at the moment, because new season's going to start in, I think they said April 13th, so that's roughly a week and a half away from now. So it should be interesting to see how it fares. I can't wait for to go on live servers, because Raycore sounds like it's going to be so fun to try out now. So I definitely want to try out the Raycore build. Alright, let's see here. Fire off some bone spears. Yes, I did use the Land of the Dead there because we were in a position where we knew that there was going to be a bum rush of enemies coming forward. Unfortunately, not as many elite packs as I wanted, but at least that's got us through this corridor again. Like I said, it's really timing these windows, so this is kind of one of those armors where it's hard to master, but when you do, it's very gratifying, but it lacks in power compared to some of the other Necromancer armors that we have. Like, when I say Grace of Anaris is better than this, and Grace of Anaris has obviously its issues, so to speak. Let me back out of there. Sorry. I paused a second. I got kind of caught up in the heat of the moment. I wasn't sure if I was going to die there. Let's have our command skeletons try to take them out. Alright, we moved too close. I gotta be careful. I gotta heal. Alright. Let's wait. Let's wait some more. Alright, fire off my Land of the Dead here in a second. Land of the Dead. Let's fire off a whole bunch of corpses. Let's run straight through them. Take everybody out that we can. Alright. So we gotta go up and around. That's fine. We're probably gonna run out of Land of the Dead, but we did our job, hopefully, to the most part. Alright, let's keep pushing forward. Fire off some corpse lances. Nice, nice. So far, so good. So far, so good. Very good. Let's get to the next area. Okay, so this area, basically, we're going to be playing very passively. Again, we're just waiting for our Land of the Dead to pop up, so we're going to teleport around as much as possible, and for our corpse lances to create more corpses, to fire off more corpse lances, and so on and so forth, till we get our Land of the Dead back active. Then when we do, we'll do one really big, fast running rotation yet again through everything to be able to handle our business. As you can see, command skeletons don't do a lot of damage to enemies, so they're just kind of there to help, but they don't do as much to really help. We're gonna have to pop a Land of the Dead. I didn't want to do it. I'm waiting till I try to get to that pylon, but we don't have a choice. Alright. Now, we did Land of the Dead. Let's fire off infinite Corpse Lances. Let's keep firing off Corpse Lances. Rift Guardians here. Let's teleport over this way. I'm waiting here because we have a whole bunch of corpses I can fire off because I'm in my Land of the Dead, so the Johnston will kill him. Let's fire off that. Yep. Johnston killed him thanks to the puck there. Alright, and that's pretty much how you will handle a Rift Guardian in that particular situation. Always try to save your Land of the Dead for the Rift Guardians when possible. If not, make sure you have a lot of corpses around so that if you're coming out of a Land of the Dead, that you can just fire off all those spears and just one-shot the Rift Guardian. So that's pretty much how this armor plays. It's a bit complicated. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section. I'll be able to answer as many as I can possibly. I always appreciate anybody who comments on the comment section, asks questions. I try to get back to you guys as fast as possible, which I generally, whenever I see a comment, I usually respond right away, unless it's obviously bad. Alright, so that was Greater Rift 70, Tournament 15 difficulty, 5 minutes, 58-second clear time. Greater Rift 80, it's probably going to be about 6 to 7 minutes, and you're also going to be more vulnerable, so keep that in mind. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's Diablo 3 video. As always, a like on this video is greatly appreciated. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, definitely consider doing so, as it helps the channel grow. And I will see you for the next Diablo 3 video, which is going to be Horde of the 90 Savages.